Hi, my name is Simone Williams, and welcome to the first episode of Art Like Everything Else, the podcast. To start everything off, I would actually like to start with a quote I found online. So, this is a quote by Hunter Reviewer, and it goes, I like art, and by art I mean music, poetry, sex, paintings, the human body, literature. All of this is art to me. Now, I thought that was a really cool quote because I feel like it encapsulates what I'd like to discuss in this podcast. So, for this podcast, not only do I consider all of those things art, but I consider so many more things to be art. I believe there are so many more things that kind of encapsulate the human experience, which for me is art. So, I'd actually like to start off by letting you all know how I came up with the title for this podcast. So there's a poem by Sylvia Plath called Lady Lazarus. And now in this poem, she talks about this sort of constant rebirth cycle and compares herself to Lazarus. For those who may not know, there's a story in the Christian Bible that describes Jesus Christ as raising a man named Lazarus from the dead. In the poem, Sylvia is talking about the encounters with death that she's had over her lifetime, and there's a line in that poem where she says, dying is an art like everything else. Now, in the society we live in today, it is so easy to forget about all the little things that can be beautiful in the world, and all the small things, and all the ways that the little things that we do from day to day, and the people and things we experience can be beautiful and meaningful and can add to that art like everything else. So, just as in that poem, she said, dying is an art like everything else, I would like to talk about the everything else. Because I truly believe in my heart of hearts that so much of the human experience is really, really beautiful. I believe the art we consume and see reflecting the human experience allows people to feel seen. So often you may find yourself gravitating to specific things in pop culture, like you see people who gravitate towards specific artists because their lyrics often speak to them on a very personal level, or just the vibe of the music kind of makes them feel good. Or maybe they like certain movies or certain shows because they get to feel seen and relate to the characters on screen. It's often very beautiful to witness people getting that chance to relate and feel seen, because so much of living and existing nowadays, people can feel like they're invisible and that they're alone in their experience. And so I think that is something that I would like to explore, all the ways that art can reflect the very real human experience. Honestly, there's so much that we do when it comes to living on like a day-to-day basis. So many people and things we experience when it comes to existing on a day-to-day basis that I feel often can get missed or not even thought about. I think so often when we're trying to get through our day-to-day, so many things are pushed to the background, and we're often not allowed or even encouraged to be present. And we're not often even given a chance to actually actively experience what we may be going through on any given day. And it could just be really little things. So, for example, maybe it's walking to the convenience store, maybe it's browsing a convenience store, all kinds of these little things. Maybe you're not going to a convenience store. Maybe you're walking to a bus stop. Maybe you're riding a bus. Maybe your experience simply whatever a day in your life is. And that day of yours is a culmination of so many little things. And I believe that when added together, those little things can kind of build up to this really beautiful experience, which is simply a reflection of the human experience. I believe so much of art has to be the ability to connect people through both similarities and even differences. I feel the ability to enjoy and experience and just be allowed and just be allows people to exist, and not just exist, but exist in connection and in community with other people, whether actively or not. And I think that is something really cool about the human experience. That even on those days where you're not even actively trying to be a part of anything, simply by existing, you are still participating, which is beautiful. I believe the participation is absolutely something that, like, whether intentional or unintentional, is art in and of itself. And so, yeah, I mean, that's really what my goals are for this podcast. I truly hope to honestly invite you all on this journey, not only as I explore different aspects of the human experience, but I would also love to hear from you all about your own human experience and the beauties and maybe even the trials and tribulations, because I do believe even in pain there can be art. I don't think art only has to be beautiful. I believe art can be ugly, and art can just be art. Art is something to be seen, and it's simply a reflection of the human experience. It doesn't have to be beautiful to be seen. And so much of the human experience is, while beautiful, it can also be painful. And maybe it's not beautiful. Maybe it's something ugly, but it's something to be seen, and it's a part of the human experience. And therefore, I consider it to be art, like everything else. To close out this first episode, I have a quote from a Tumblr post by Cosmo Girl. The username is spelled KOSMOGRL, and so the quote reads as follows: "It's so beautiful to think that we find beauty in so many different things, and we just choose to love them for the rest of our lives with the same enthusiasm since the first day. I'll never not be in awe when I watch the sea or a sunset, and I've seen them so many times that I've lost count, and I'll never get sick of them." And I agree with that. I thought, just with that thought in general, as I was reading that quote, I thought it was such a beautiful thing to point out, because it is really cool that we are able to find beauty in so many of the littlest things, in so many of these very small moments. Oftentimes you may not even think all that often about when you take the time, but when you do actually get the chance to take the time to pay attention, or you actually get the chance to kind of be present, because let's be honest, not many of us are encouraged to or are even able to be actively present a lot of the time in our day-to-day lives. So when you do get the chance to be present, sometimes you do realize just how in love with these little moments that you are. For example, every time I take my dog out for her to use the bathroom at night, I always take this chance to look up and see the stars. And I do this every day. And honestly, I'll never get sick of seeing the stars. I'll never get sick of this time with my dog while I'm letting her out to go use the bathroom and do her business, that I also get to take this moment to look into the sky and see the stars. And I'll never not be in awe of the stars or just astronomy stuff in general. The stars are beautiful and they're amazing to me, and I like to think about them. And it's all so cool to me every time I see it. But yeah, that's something that I personally would never get sick of, and I actually would like to hear from all those listening. What is something that you'll never get sick of? It can be something you see, it can be something you experience, it can be a time when you get to be present. What is that something you'll never get sick of? Drop it in the comments below. I'm interested in hearing and seeing all the things that you all find beautiful and all the things that you won't ever get sick of. And yeah, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you all for listening. Thank you all for being. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.